Hello everybody and welcome to Simul8 Gaming, and finally welcome to my Farming Simulator 19 confirmed feature video. Now for those of you that don't know or are new to the channel, I was lucky enough to get flown out to Germany by Giant Software, aka the people that make the game, to have a little look at Farming Simulator 19 at FarmCon18 along with the rest of FarmCon18. Now everything I'm going to be telling you in this video is stuff that I picked up from FarmCon18 just by taking notes during the FS19 presentation, etc. Now one thing to note before we head in to this video, the footage that you are about to see is from Farming Simulator 17, not Farming Simulator 19. Once again, for the people at the back, the footage that you are about to see on this video is from Farming Simulator 17, not Farming Simulator 19. So now we've got that out of the way, let's jump in with the video. Okay, so first things first, let's go ahead and squash some rumours. So there's rumours go around online of stuff that is going to be in Farm Sim 19 that is not actually going to be in Farm Sim 19. And stuff that's not been confirmed just yet. So let's go ahead and squash some rumours. The biggest one on this list is probably Claas. A lot of people think Claas is still coming to Farming Simulator 19. However, it has been confirmed by Giants that on the day of release, at least, Claas will not be in Farming Simulator 19. So they had Claas Zerions at FarmCon. They belong to Horsch, not Giants. They are only there because they belong to Horsch. So yeah, Claas on the day of release will not be in Farming Simulator 19. The next one is VR support. Farming Simulator 19 does not have VR support, nor is there any plans just yet for the foreseeable future of adding VR. Giants actually said that it takes up too much resources, and the player margin that would actually play in VR at the moment is very, very small. So maybe in a later Farm Sim, but definitely not for Farming Simulator 19. Now next up we have windscreen wipers. Now I can confirm that windscreen wipers were in FS19 at an earlier date, but we heard from Martin and Lars that windscreen wipers were broken, so they were removed. Now whether we'll see them at a later date, in a future update, maybe, or maybe they will get them fixed for the launch date, but as it stands, Farming Simulator in its current build does not have windscreen wipers. Okay, now the next question was actually asked by myself at FarmCon18, and that was whether the game will have multi-terrain angle. Now I can confirm Farming Simulator 19 does not have multi-terrain angle. Now if you don't know what multi-terrain angle is, that's basically, imagine you're driving down the field with a plow and you start swerving your tractor. The texture will not be a smooth transition, it will be 45-degree angles like we've seen in previous Farming Simulator games. Giants also went in to explain why that's the case, and now I fully understand why. It's quite interesting to know why as well, but we may see it in a mod. But yes, out the box, Farming Simulator 19 does not have multi-terrain angle. The next big one was dynamic terrain. Despite the fact that Giants have already said that Farming Simulator 19 will not have dynamic terrain, people are still saying online that Farming Simulator 19 may have dynamic terrain. Now I can officially confirm, after seeing some gameplay of it at FarmCon, Farming Simulator 19 does not have dynamic terrain. Now Giants have hinted that they've tested around with it in the past, but it didn't work out. So as far as Farming Simulator 19 goes, we will definitely not have dynamic terrain. However, I do think that the way placeables work now in Farming Simulator 19, and we'll get to that later on in the video, I do think maybe we'll see it at some point because the engine's getting more and more clever. But once again, Farming Simulator 19 will not have dynamic terrain. Okay, so we're going to start off with the fun things that I think you guys are more interested in, and as the video progresses, we'll get down into the more technical things. So, every game starts off with a main menu, and Farming Simulator 19 is no different. So the main menu in FS19 looks pretty similar to FS17, but of course it's had different pictures, different buttons, etc. But if you know your way around FS17, you'll know your way around FS19 pretty easy. You'll feel right at home in the main menu, basically. In terms of in-game HUD, we have now lost the boxes around all of the different elements on the HUD. So since I can remember back in Farm Sim 08, we've had boxes and stuff around the time and the weather and stuff. That is now gone. We now just have icons in the top corner. Now try and replicate this on your screen now, kind of. So once again, this is not a screenshot. This is something I've made in Photoshop, just to give you an idea of what I mean. It's a very minimal look. I kind of like it, so it's not intrusive. It keeps the immersion and stuff. So it's now just icons instead of boxes, which I think is really, really cool. We also have a speedometer down the bottom corner. Now, once again, this one that you're seeing on screen is a homemade one, so that is not what it looks like in game. I'm just, of course, getting out the paintbrush and give you guys a little demonstration. But yeah, we now have a really nice speedometer and the fuel gauge and stuff, which is really cool. Okay, so moving on from the main menu, of course, the next stage is to select your difficulty level. Now, since Farming Simulator has started, as far as I can remember at least, it's been easy, medium, and harder difficulty level. This is now changed in Farming Simulator 19 quite dramatically. Now, I must warn you that the presentation was in German and we had translations in our ears, so the names I call things may be incorrect, but you'll get the rough idea. So easy or basic, once again, it was in German, so I can't tell you the exact name of it, but this is basically easy. You start off with quite a lot of money, you start off with equipment, and there's no say on loans just yet, but you used to start off with, of course, a bank loan. Don't know if that's still in there, but yeah, that's for people that just want to jump straight into the game with all the equipment and the money and stuff, which is pretty cool. Medium difficulty is now called Farm Manager. Now, you start off with less equipment, less money, and probably no buildings. Once again, we're not 100% sure if it was in German, but hard level was, I believe, called Farming Legend. I'm not 100% sure. Once again, it's pretty roughly translated in my ear, but this basically means you start with nothing apart from money. So no equipment, no farm, no fields. You basically have to build your way up from scratch, doing contracting work for other farmers, which I think is really, really cool. Can't wait to start doing that on Farm Sim. It's going to be really interesting. So you can buy one tractor and a couple of tools, go ahead and use your own equipment doing contracting work, and we'll get into the contracting stuff later on in the video. Okay, so after you selected your difficulty level, you go on to the character customization screen, and my gosh, this has changed dramatically. So up till now in Farming Simulator 17, we had a picture of a male farmer or a female farmer, and we could change the shirt colors, which was really cool at the time because we could see who's who in multiplayer, even if you've got the names turned off. But now in FS19, that has dramatically changed. You now have a 3D render of your character, which is moving and breathing, which by itself is pretty cool, but they go further. You can now change the hairstyle of your character, you can change their clothes, so jackets, t-shirts, hats, you can give them accessories, and missing from the build at FarmCon was skin color, but they have mentioned skin color. Also, the female farmer at FarmCon18 build was missing as well, but I can confirm that we will have a female character, of course. So it's really cool. Now you can completely change the look of your character. Still no word on whether you can go in third person when you're walking around, but it's really cool. It's definitely a step in the right direction for character customization and you being a farmer on Farming Simulator 19. Okay, so once you've created your character and obviously chosen your difficulty level, you will spawn inside one of 3 maps in Farming Simulator 19. So up till now, it's always been 2 maps when the game is released. Now it is 3. And we saw the America map at FarmCon18, which was called Ravenport. Now, Ravenport is, of course, like I just said, an American map. However, it looks like Giants are moving away from the just square fields that we've saw in previous Farming Simulator games, that none of the fields are actually completely square, which is really cool, which also makes me think that the AI hired worker has also been updated and changed to handle more complex shaped fields. We also have a Western European map. We did not see any screenshots or the PDA or anything for that map, so unfortunately I can't relay any information for you. I don't even know the name of it, but we were told it was Western European. And of course, we also have the South American map that we saw as DLC in Farming Simulator 17, although it's been completely reamped and changed to match FS19. I'm not going to attempt to say the name because I've never been able to say the name, unfortunately, because I'm a bit of an idiot. But yeah, that map will also be transferred over to FS19 with a completely new revamped look. Okay, now probably the most anticipated thing about Farming Simulator 19, and probably the main reason why you guys are watching this video right now, is the vehicles. The vehicles in Farming Simulator 19, and of course the most important one being John Deere. John Deere is now in Farming Simulator 19, which by now we all know, and you guys all know. Now, at the moment, we've only seen one tractor at FarmCon, which was the 7R, I believe. Not exactly sure on the model, I forgot to write it down, but the John Deere looks fantastic. It's completely built from the ground up, of course, because we've never had John Deere before, along with the new animated parts and stuff. However, we now have another confirmed John Deere vehicle in-game, and that is the John Deere Gator. At the time of release, that will be part of the Collector's Edition, so if you buy the Collector's Edition, you'll have the John Deere Gator. And the John Deere Gator, for those of you that don't know, is basically a little buggy cart thing. Interesting to see how this is going to be implemented, because this is actually the second cart that we have in Farming Simulator 19, which brings me to my next topic for the console versions of day 1 release, the Mahindra Retriever. Now, I didn't know this was coming in until literally yesterday. The Mahindra Retriever looks like a day 1 DLC for consoles. Whether we'll get it on PC or not, I do not know, but yes, we got 2 carts, so it's going to be interesting to see why Giants are putting in so much carts or buggies and see how they're going to be implemented. Now, my guess is going to be probably the dog, but once again, I'm not 100% sure. Now, one thing that's not really been talked about, especially on the English forums, is the JCB Fastrac 150. Now, although this is not confirmed to be in Farming Simulator 19, we were showed about how the sounds work in Farming Simulator 19 and how they record tractor sounds. Now, Giants show us a picture of a Fastrac 150 with microphones all over it, and they were talking about obviously putting the sounds into Farming Simulator 19. However, that does not mean that the Fastrac 150 is confirmed. This could be what they did for Matt XJS's classic DLC that we saw in FS17. So once again, don't get your hopes up, this is not confirmed, but we did see a picture of a Fastrac 150 in real life with microphones attached to it. So will we see it? Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think. The next vehicle that we have, and you guys saw in the trailer, is the Case Cotton Harvester. Now, I'm going to go into that later on in the crop section of this video, but yes, that is a new harvester that we have in game, which is the Case Cotton Harvester, which looks pretty cool. I don't know if we're going to see John Deere cotton harvesters. John Deere are very known for their cotton harvesters, so maybe we'll see two, although it doesn't really make sense having two in game, but we'll have to wait and find out about that. Now, one thing we've known about for a while now is the Fendt Ideal Combine Harvester, so that is another confirmed vehicle. One harvester we're going to have is the Fendt Ideal. Now, once again, exclusive to FarmCon18, this is not a vehicle, this is an implement or attachment. We saw the Brendel K105. Now, this is the baby brother of the Brendel spreader that we see in Farming Simulator 17. So it's basically a smaller version with a single axle. That's good to know that we're also getting more stuff in between the range, so we haven't got a big of a jump between our fertilizer spreaders, and fertilizer spreaders are now a lot more crucial in the game, and once again I'll get to that later on in the video. And of course, another thing that you guys all know about just yet, and I'm not really sure how this is going to be used, whether it's just a bit of fun, we also have horses. Now, horse has been confirmed in Farming Simulator 19 for a while now, and like I just said, I don't know how this is going to be implemented into the game, and we'll get into about how you look after your horse and stuff later on in the video. But yes, that is another vehicle which I'm assuming you can ride, although I'm not 100% sure just yet until I see some gameplay of that. Okay, so whilst we're still on the topic of vehicles, let's get a little bit more technical. Now, everything from FS17 that's been carried over to 19 has been retextured from the ground up. Now, this is because there's a new texture technique that implements and tools use in Farming Simulator 17, which we'll get into later on in the video about the more technical stuff. But everything now looks a lot better. Now, one of those main things is materials, like I said. So we've got plastic, chrome, metal. Of course, you can add your own, but there's some materials built into the game. So plastic also uses what's called multi-sampling, I believe. Basically, that means the texture is quite a small texture that doesn't have to be spread out. So instead of having one plastic texture spread out throughout the whole model, you have a little section that's then duplicated to give you very, very high detail plastic, which is really, really cool. One of my most anticipated things is interior lighting. Now, when you turn the external work lights or running lights on your tractor, the in-cab dash lights light up as well. So we can now see the gauges at nighttime, all the buttons at nighttime, which are going to look really, really cool when you're working at nighttime. And the reason for this as well is because now the buttons are animated. So pedals, joysticks now move when you turn them on. This is not IC controlled, I should add. This is just done as we know it, but now there's animated parts inside the cab, which is really, really cool. And of course, these will light up at nighttime, like I just said. In terms of FS17 DLC vehicles, as of yet, nothing's been confirmed. So whether we'll see the Big Bird or not, we don't know just yet. Hopefully, because the Big Bird is a really impressive bit of machinery. I'm hoping we do see that in FS19. But once again, not 100% sure. So vehicles now also have separate animated parts. So instead of being one big object with moving wheels, the chassis now twists and turns, the cab bounces up and down, and I also believe the farmer's seat bounces up and down, so to give you a lot more immersion when you're going over those bumps and devs in the road. It's going to be really, really cool to see the tractor twisting and turning when you go up different terrains and stuff, which is really, really cool as well. Another thing is dynamic hoses. Yes, dynamic hoses are now built into Farming Simulator 19. We've had it before as mods in previous Farming Simulators, but now it's built into the game, and Giants have done a lot better job at it. So there was also word, once again it was in German, so I'm hoping I'm translating this correctly. There's also word of it, the cables sagging. Whether these will move or not when the tractor is moving, or whether they wobble and stuff, I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, you can control the sag, and that's controlled of course by the length of the hoses. So now you have the hydraulics, the electrics, etc. all plugging into the tractor to the trailer, which should add a little bit more immersion. As far as I'm aware just yet, these are not manual attach, they're just the good old-fashioned press Q and then they'll attach to the tractor. Another important thing is vehicle wear. Now at the moment this only applies to metal, but they are working on other materials as well. So as you use a plow, for example, over time the plow will get worn and you'll have obviously scratches and stuff from stones that you've been plowing up. In terms of vehicle wear on the actual tractors and machinery, this will affect the tractor. It's not just cosmetic, so over time it'll cost more in fuel, it'll cost more in maintenance, it will not perform as well as it should be when it's maintained. Now to fix all of this, you take it to your workshop at the farm and you can repair it for a small fee. Of course, things aren't free. So yeah, that's really something I'm looking forward to, being able to maintain the tractors properly and also have visual representation of this. Now another big thing, which is a bit technical, so I should probably put this in the technical section, but I'm going to go ahead and put it here, is the way that wheels work. We now have wheel cylinders as opposed to just a plane, which we saw in previous farm sim games, so no more falling down the grain dump point or anything like that. It's going to be a proper width, so the width of your wheel is now the actual working width of your tractor. Okay, so once again, we'll go into more detail in the vehicles in the technical section about how they work, etc. But for now, let's go ahead and jump into the crops. So as you guys may have heard earlier on in this video, in case you don't know it already or have not seen the trailer, cotton harvesting is now a thing in Farming Simulator 19. So we'll be able to take out our new cotton harvester, harvest some cotton, and I'm assuming sell it for quite a good price as well, because cotton harvesting is pretty complex. Another confirmed crop we have is oats. Now, I believe, once again, this is just another crop that we can plant in the ground and sell for profit. However, I also have heard that the horse eats the oats. So, of course, you'll be harvesting the oats and feeding some of it to your horse. Once again, I'm not 100% sure on the actual purpose of the horse just yet, but it's going to be cool that we have to feed them and maintain them as well. Now, this isn't actually a crop as per se, but it does grow in your fields, and that is weeds. Now, we have a full weed engine or weed system built into Farming Simulator 19, so weeds will actually grow on your field. And there's two ways of sorting out the weeds, which I'll get to in a second. But basically, you have to look after your fields and make sure weeds don't grow on them. So there's two different stages of the weeds. The first one is if they've only just popped out the ground, you can actually use a weeder to pull these out of the ground before they get too big. If they have already grown, first of all, they look fantastic. They're quite pretty, but of course they're not meant to be there and they will affect your crop yield, so they need to go. And the only way to do that if they've grown is by using a chemical formula and spraying that onto the field to get rid of them. Now, this is actually determined by your difficulty level as well, so we heard at FarmCon. So if you're on easy, I believe the weeds disappear instantly. If you're on medium, I think they wither instantly. And if you're on hard, I'm assuming you have to wait for them to die over time. Once again, this is not confirmed, but they did mention something like that at FarmCon, although I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, different difficulty levels determines how the weeds are sorted out on your farm, which is pretty cool. Speaking of fertilizing and spraying, we have a brand new fertilizer type, and this is of course lime or Kalk, depending on where you're from. And to go along with this fertilizer, we have a brand new texture as well. So this is an extra layer that goes on top of your field and it actually puts down white pellets. Now this is a bit like the GMK mod we've seen in Farming Simulator 15, which of course now is 2 generations ago, but it's really cool. Of course we saw a little bit of a preview of this in Farming Simulator 17 with the manure, but now we have more different fertilizer types. I'm hoping the rest of them will have textures as well, although that's not confirmed just yet. Kalk is now also used as opposed to periodic ploughing, so you don't have to plough your field every 3 harvests anymore. You can just throw down some lime, which is going to be really cool. Once again, another job for us to do on the farms, which adds more of a gameplay element as well, so really looking forward to the lime. That's probably one of my most favourite things about Farm Sim 19 that's been confirmed so far. Okay, this is going to be a really quick section, but this is wildlife. Up till now, we've had 2 pieces of wildlife confirmed, and what I mean by that is we now have wild animals that we do not have to maintain. So one of those is birds, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this used to be flying pigs, although that is now changed to actual birds, which is going to be really cool. So I have heard people mention that they will be following the seed drill when you're seeding. Of course, the birds want the seeds and stuff. I didn't hear that at FarmCon. I must have been switched off at that point. But yeah, birds are definitely now a thing, whether they'll just fly out the trees or whether they'll follow the cedar. I'm not 100% sure. And the next one is deer. So we'll now see deer running across the roads and the fields. So when you're out in your tractor, just to add a bit more life to the map, we will see deer run past through our fields, which I'm really excited for. Cannot wait for that. It's going to add a lot more life and immersion to the game, especially when using head tracking, which I'm assuming is going to be in Farm Sim 19 as well. So whilst we are on the topic of wildlife and animals, let's go ahead and talk about the animals that we are responsible for in Farming Simulator 19. So one, like we mentioned earlier, is the horse. Now, checking my notes, I was actually wrong earlier on in this video. We can ride the horse, and also the horse eats oats, as I mentioned earlier. So whether it's just a little bit of a gimmick, or whether these will have a purpose later on in the game, we're not 100% sure. But yeah, the horse is confirmed for Farming Simulator 19, as we saw in the trailer as well. Also confirmed is the dog. Now, the dog has been confirmed as a companion. Whether they have another use or just follow you around, we're not 100% sure just yet. This was not actually at FarmCon because it wasn't finished. But yeah, really looking forward to having the companion, which surprisingly looks a lot like Lars's dog, Red. However, Lars did confirm they never saw Red, it was just a coincidence. Also, speaking of animals, you can now place pastures on your map, which is really cool. So you can also have one pasture per team, has been translated, although I'm pretty sure I heard it as one pasture per map, but apparently it was one per team. So I'll have to double check with that when the game's obviously released, but that's really cool that you can have placeable pastures as well as the in-game built-in ones. Okay, so whilst we're still on animals, there is now an animal limit. You can now have a limit to how much animals you can own. Now, this isn't a set value, this is determined by the size of the pasture. So if you have a small pasture built into the map, of course you can extend that by putting a placeable pasture down, which will extend the amount of animals that you can own. Now, of course, this is per animal, not altogether, so you can have maybe 100 cows depending on the size of your pasture. So I'm going to be looking forward to that. You're actually going to have to think about how much cows you can fit when creating your map and placing down your pastures. Now, though we've already discussed vehicles in this video and also the HUD and the main menus, we're going to go ahead and talk about the new store. So this is one of the things that shocked me the most, and this actually got a round of applause at FarmCon18 because it's just something we've not seen in Farming Simulator before. And this is now a 3D render. So when you're in the store, you have your different sections. So you have categories, and this is not just down to tractors and seeders and stuff. Now we now have different sizes. So you have a section that's called small tractors, medium tractors, large tractors, etc, etc. So that's going to be cool and make it a lot easier to navigate around the store, especially if you've got hundreds and hundreds of mods. And as I mentioned a second ago, this is now 3D render, including the customization. So if you want to change the wheels, when you select the different wheels in the shop, it will give you a preview as to what that looks like. So now when you're testing out mods, you no longer have to spawn 8 of the same vehicle with different options. You can just go ahead and see the different options in store, which is really, really cool. Okay, so moving on, we have the gameplay. Now, there's a lot of ways the gameplay has changed in Farming Simulator 19 to give the players a lot more things to do in the game, which is fantastic. So which means for YouTubers like myself especially, there's going to be a lot more things to do and a lot more for you guys to watch and enjoy as well. And one of those things, like I mentioned earlier, if you select the hard level, which I believe was Farm Legend, not 100% sure on that name once again, you start off with absolutely nothing apart from money, and you have to build your farm from scratch. Now, I don't just mean like we're used to in Farming Simulator 17, because of course you could place objects in Farming Simulator 17. I mean literally nothing. So you have to place your farmhouse, you have to place your silos, you have to place your pastures, your sheds. Now, one of the ways this is dramatically improved, and I did mention this briefly earlier when we were talking about dynamic terrain, is that now when you place the objects, the ground will form around that object. So instead of having huge concrete blocks sticking out of the ground like we're used to in previous farming simulators, the ground will now merge up and create a nice smooth layer, so you can just drive straight up to it. Now, if you need something with like a ramp, for example, it will also take into account the ramp so that you can drive up into the shed, etc., which is really cool. Including fields. So although the fields won't be registered on the map on the PDA, you can actually plow your own fields into the game. We could do this already in Farming Simulator, but of course now you can build your farm around that, or build your farm and then put fields around that if they're just grass fields, for example. And once again, these will not be numbered, but they will be fields that you can use fully and plant crops in. Which transitions us into our next topic, which is buying fields. Now, you don't actually buy fields in Farming Simulator 19, you buy areas of the map. So that would include yards, fields, back roads. So basically, let's just say the map maker decides to do a 4-player map and the map is divided into 4 sections. If you buy one of the corners of the map, you then have everything in that corner. Now, this is not actually squares. That was a bad example I just done. There can be any shape you want. So basically, when you buy that area of the map, you get all the fields in it and all the yards and stuff, which is really, really cool. Really looking forward to that. And you can also sell that land as well. Now, one thing I was thinking that I've not actually heard anyone else talk about just yet is, can you develop the land? So if you buy a piece of land with like 4 big grass fields in it, can you build a yard from scratch, put down the farmhouse, the pastures, the silos? Will that land now be worth more than you paid for it? This is not something that's been confirmed, but it'd be really cool if that is the case, because you could technically be a land developer or farm developer now and completely change the way of like a plain grass field into a completely brand new farm, sell it off for a profit. Missions are no longer a mini game as well. So in Farming Simulator 17 we had missions and there was a progress bar at the top with a countdown timer. The countdown timer has now been completely removed, so you can take as long as you want. Now I think they've got around this by you now have to 100% finish the field, but you can now take your time and use your own equipment. So it's more like a lot more realistic contracting work as opposed to a mini game, which I'm really looking forward to. So I can actually do like a contracting series, for example. But also this works on multiplayer. We'll get into multiplayer in a second. But you can actually get other players to do contracting work for you and then pay them. And once again, I'll explain how that works later on in the multiplayer section. And as mentioned briefly earlier, you can also do contracting, so you can take your own equipment to do the missions, or you can rent the equipment. So if you have your own equipment, you can take that and then probably get paid a little bit more for doing that job for them, which I think is really cool. It all adds into the gameplay, and this is just the stuff that's been confirmed so far. There's probably going to be more announced. Stay tuned for that. Okay, now as promised, let's go on to the multiplayer section. Now at FarmCon, they said there was 4 different teams you can have, or 4 different players. So although there's only 4 teams, you could technically have 16 players on the map, of course, divided into 4 teams. However, because that had such a good response at FarmCon18, Giants have said they're going to try and knock that up to 8. So there'll be 8 teams. So you can have 16 people divided up into 8 different teams, which will really add a different feel to the way multiplayer works. And you can now either go against each other, work with each other, completely up to you. So who can make the most money in the season, or someone could be in charge of animals, someone could be in charge of crop. The people who are producing the crop can then sell straw bales and food to the people owning the animal pastures, etc. The people owning the animal pastures can of course give the other farms silage, etc., which can be really, really cool. Each team now has their own equipment. Like I said, it was 4, but I believe it's getting put up to 8. So there'll be 8 different bank accounts on a multiplayer server, so you can all have your own equipment, your own money, and you can also own your own land. So up on the PDA, you'll have, for example, a blue section, a red section, a green section, and a yellow section. All of the things inside the yellow section belong, of course, to the yellow team. All the stuff in the red section belongs to the red team. So there's a really different take on it. So of course you can tend to your own land, which is really, really cool. Now another big change to multiplayer is missions. Missions now exist inside multiplayer. So if you choose to play on hard and start off with just money, you can go and do some contracting missions on multiplayer until you have enough money to build up your own farm and buy your own equipment. And as mentioned earlier, you can contract for each other. So the yellow team could get someone from the red team to come harvest their field for them, and then of course pay them out of their own bank account. Really looking forward to getting into multiplayer on this game. Okay, now with all the gameplay stuff out of the way, let's get technical. Now there was quite a lot of clues in the actual technical stuff of what we can expect in Farming Simulator 19. So let's jump straight into that, and one of the most important ones is the lighting system. We now have a proper lighting system in Farming Simulator 19. So we have a sun which actually casts real shadows down onto the environment, and along with that we have bloom and lens flare. So that's going to be really, really cool when you're in the field stuff. You've got the lighting coming from behind the trees, shooting a cast down through the field and creating shadows and stuff. Another thing making it feel very 2019 is depth of field. Now if you don't know what depth of field is, that is when you're focused on the object, the background will become blurry, like what happens in real life, but you don't even realize it's happening. So that's going to really add a new graphical element to the game. And also probably one of the most important things is I'm going to call it the skybox, or the skybox is pretty much gone right now because we now have actual cloud system. So we have real-time dynamic clouds in the sky doing their own thing. Now these can affect sunlight. For example, if a cloud goes over the sun, it'll look pretty dull out. Obviously the lighting will go down a little bit. You can also see rain clouds coming in before they actually get there. So if you look into the distance, you see some grey clouds coming in. You know it's about to rain, aka get that combine harvester out of there. Now speaking of rain clouds, rain no longer comes through buildings and vehicles. So when you're in your tractor, the rain will not come into the cab as we've seen in previous farm sim games, nor if you're in a stable or a barn or a house, the rain will not come through there either. Now this is, I'm assuming, using a raycast method. So this should add quite a comfortable level as well. If you're out in the field doing stuff in the rain with the lights on and stuff, it's going to look pretty cozy when the rain's not actually coming through the roof. Now I'm sure by now you guys have heard of the 4 real modules for Farming Simulator 17. This is basically crop destruction and terrain response. These are now built into Farming Simulator 19 as standard, so if you're driving across a ploughed field, the tractor will act as if you're going across a ploughed field and suspension will get put to work basically. Okay, now whilst we're in the technical section, I think it's safe to say that the AI hired workers have had a bit of an overhaul. Now this has not been confirmed 100% just yet, but seeing as giants are moving away from completely square fields, I'm going to assume they can handle more complex methods when it comes to setting an AI hired worker off. And one thing I absolutely love about Farming Simulator 19, and I briefly mentioned this earlier about the JCB Fastrac 150, is sounds. There is now a lot more sounds in Farming Simulator 19 to really give you that immersion when you're driving around the map. Now of course this is down to the map makers to also implement these into their maps, but the fact that we can now support more sound files is absolutely incredible. In fact, there's that many more sound files in Farming Simulator 19 that they've had to add categories. So you now have different categories, so ambience for example, or city noise. Completely down to you, but it should add a completely new immersion to the game. So as promised, I'm not going to go into too much detail today. I'm going to keep it nice and brief in layman's terms. For example, just so we know exactly what's coming. Now, everything I talked about in this video, as mentioned at the start, was from FarmCon18. So I'm not talking about rumors that I've heard online. I'm not talking about quotes that we saw on Discord. This is stuff that I personally saw with my own eyes at FarmCon and wrote it down, and now I'm translating that to you. So there might have been some stuff missing. There may have been some stuff you didn't know about. But either way, really, really excited for Farming Simulator 19. I'm hoping this video you guys found interesting. If you did, please slap that thumbs up button. It really does mean a lot. Hit subscribe to see more from myself. I've been Simul8 Gaming, and I'll see you in the next one.